The Carl B. Phillips Show.
Hosted by me, Carl B. Phillips, Uncle Carl.
The Carl B. Phillips Show.
Get ready for another great conversation on the Carl B. Phillips Show. Welcome to the Carl B. Phillips Show. I am Carl B. Phillips, Uncle Carl. Today's guest is a husband, father, educator, recording artist, songwriter, musician, and a choir director. Please help me welcome Andraye Speed. What's up, my brother?
What's going on? Thank you for having me on. It's such an honor to be here.
Oh, man, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Now, as I told you, I'm going to ask a couple of random questions. So we're going to start out the gate with a random question.
Let's get it.
All right. In high school, what was your favorite elective and what was your least favorite elective in high school?
Oh man, that's a spicy question. Okay. I would say my favorite was science, and my least favorite was math.
That's kind of interesting because doesn't science need some math?
Definitely. The thing about it was like it's not even that I didn't like doing math. There was just a lot of it that like I've never used. You know what I mean? So I think those kind of courses right there was like, let me get the grade for it, but I don't think I'm ever going to use it, and I haven't. So
All those different type of equations and algebra and all that kind of stuff. Long as my paycheck right, that's all I need to add up.
I heard that. I heard that.
Now, you're also an educator. What grade
Yes.
level do you teach and what courses do you teach?
Well, I work for Lawrence Township, the school district called Lawrence Township in my city, and I do two things in school. So in one school, I am a behavioral specialist, and I also am a caregiver, a lead caregiver. And then my high school students, I teach at a high school called Lawrence North that I graduated from 2005. I'm old, y'all. But I graduated from there, but I teach gospel choir there. I'm the gospel choir teacher. So
Wow, that's interesting. The, to be the gospel choir teacher. When you said that, it kind of reminds me in my high school that I went to. I was a part of the gospel choir, which kind of opened up my love of gospel music. Just being in there. So, what is the impact like being a gospel choir director in a high school in your area?
it's to me, it's major because we have kids that are teens that are believers, whether they're freshmen through seniors, some are believers, and then some are not. They genuinely, love music. And so when they hear the sound of the gospel music, they want to join. I have like maybe three people right now that's in gospel choir. They don't believe in Christ, and they'll openly tell you that. And they'll say, well, I just love the music. But it's funny because the longer they're there, the seeds are being planted within them,
Right.
what we're talking about, what we're singing about. And so you find them starting to participate in the prayers, and we have prayer and all of that good stuff. And they become more comfortable and closer with the prayers and with their singing and all of that good stuff. So it gives me a chance to witness to the youth in our district Christ, um, whether it be directly or indirectly, they're being impacted by Christ. So it's major.
So I saw a video recently. Was that you directing your school choir when you were doing Look and Live?
No, that was actually that's one of the churches that I lead worship at, and that happened to be, I think that was on the last um I can't remember, maybe that was first Sunday. Sunday that was now because we do so many songs, but that was actually one of the churches I lead worship at.
How important is it to you as a young Black educated male for students to see you as a role model in the school system?
I think it's very important because the world we live in now, there are so many things that you can get into that could really lead you down a bad path. And I've seen that a lot. And, not only just the world, but in our educational system, there's a lot of things kind of put in place and set up that are not necessarily for the benefit of our younger generation, especially our young Black men. And our young Black women as well. So um, the fact of me being there and being a role model, I take it very seriously. That way they have something to look up to and say, hey, there's a guy here who's educated, who is upstanding, trying his best to live a certain way.
Mhm.
And if he can make it here and he can do this, then so can I. You know what I mean?
Wow.
A good example for them to see so they can be empowered.
So you're not only an educator, but you're also a husband and a father of a son.
Yes, sir.
So in your relationship with your wife and your son, who's the good cop and who's the bad cop?
Oh man, that for us, we have a very different dynamic because me and my wife were both raised old school. A lot of the stuff that goes on out here, we don't go for it. So honestly, it's a team effort. It's not one of those things where our son can go to one person and say, "Hey, can
Mhm.
I?" And if you say no, then you go to the other parent and to see if you can get a yes. It's, "Hey, what did your mom say? What did your dad say?" You know what I mean? Like so. We're both very serious about how he conducts himself because he carries our last name. Um, uh, we're serious about his education. So I think we're both uh, the good and the bad cop, to be honest.
So he know that he can't play y'all against each other.
Oh no, oh not at all.
What is your favorite thing to do with your family?
Oh, oh my God. I got a few things. So my first favorite thing to do with my family is laugh. We are constantly like laughing to tears as a family. Uh, I think we're all kind of a comedian to some sort, especially our son. He has comedic timing. Um, Watching movies together is one of our favorite things to do, and also music. Me and my wife, we are musically inclined, and it is passed down to our son. So, dancing together, singing together, all of that good stuff. So I would say those top three things. Oh, and our we call them our weekend runs. We love doing our weekend runs where we all get in the car and make our rounds around the city doing stuff and exploring and all that good stuff. So yeah, love spending time with my family.
Wow. So you said y'all like dancing together. What's your favorite dance to do together?
Oh, that's a great question because out of all three of us, I am the most terrible dancer. I have the best rhythm, but I'm a terrible dancer. So really, I just try to do what my son does. He does all these new dances that I don't even know what they're called, and I just copy off of them. My wife is a great dancer, so I'm just like the guy who's trying to learn from them.
Ah, wow, that's crazy. All right, let's do another random question. What is your preferred way to read a book? Audiobook, hardcover, paperback, or an e-reader?
I'm going to say paperback.
And why paperback?
I just feel like when you have the book and it's in your hand, I don't know what it is, just like something you get when you're physically reading it. I don't know if that's probably old school of me. I've always had an older soul, so maybe that could be the thing. Minus the Bible because I read both, whether it's on an app or the actual book. So,
Do you, with all that you're doing, how hard do you have finding time to read a book nowadays?
oh my gosh, it can be incredibly difficult with the schedule that I have going through the whole week. It's insane between Brook Park, being a behavioral specialist and a lead caregiver, between um, my church home, New Beginnings, um, between being a gospel choir teacher, between leading worship at New Corinthian Church, between the my recording group, the company, and being a husband and a father. Sometimes it's like by the time I get home and I spend that time with my family and give them the rest of my time, if I'm not doing something like this, like an interview or something, I'm literally like in the chair on my way to sleep.
It's interesting, and I talk to a lot of artists about this because when you're in ministry and also artistry, just sometimes finding time, one, to hear from God, but then to find time for family or to make time. How do you how do you balance all that? And you know, uh, sometimes even in marriage, your wife would be like, "You ain't going nowhere tonight. You're gonna spend some time with me." I don't know if you've experienced that yet, but how have you learned to balance all of that?
I think it's very important to have an order of importance in your life, um, a priority list, if you will.
Hmm.
When you have a priority list and you stick to that, it kind of helps you have that balance. As a believer, obviously God is first, and after God, I know that my wife and my son, my family, that's my first ministry. That those are my first after God. So I'm always going to make sure that I give God my time, and then after that, I order everything else after my family. They're going to get my time. My son is he's never going to be able to say, Daddy wasn't around much. That's never going to happen. I don't care how tired I am. I will always be in his face. I'm always going to be at everything he has going. We're always going to have daddy son talk. I'm always going to give my wife my time. That's my best friend. That's my good thing. So she's always going to get the time that she deserves. And then after I make sure that they're straight, and I make sure I gave my time to God and my family straight. After that, everything else, falls into an order. So I kind of stick to that, and it helps me to maintain that balance. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, because it's a lot of times in ministry, we can so easily get distracted.
Yes.
Both of you and I both share being choir directors, and sometimes, you need time to learn the music. You need time to find the music. You got to go to rehearsals. You got, choir rehearsals, band rehearsals, soloist rehearsal, all these rehearsals. So again, trying to just learn how to balance time. And
Yes.
speaking
Yes.
of being a choir director, what made you decide that you wanted to be a choir director and pursue that area of ministry?
Well, so I absolutely love the questions you're asking because you're asking the spicy questions. So when I was a little kid, um, I went to church with my grandmother. God rest her soul. I miss her with all my heart. That's like another one of my best friends. And so I was in church with her one day, and that particular Sunday, instead of riding to church with my mom and my siblings and my father, I rode with my grandparents that Sunday.
Mhm.
And me and my cousin were in the car, and we got to church, and the kids choir just happened to be up singing that Sunday. And so my Meemaw turns to me out of nowhere and says, "Boy, you're gonna sing in that kids choir."
Wow.
And so I'm an introvert. Like I love all people, and I've learned how to be um a masked extrovert. But when she said that to me, I looked at her and I'm like, I'm not singing. I'm not going up there with them. All the introvert powers rose at the same time. So she turned to me and she said, "Yes, she is." And so you can't argue with your grandma, you
Right.
know. And so I said, "Okay, I'm gonna get up there because I didn't want the smoke." So I got up there and I started singing with the kids choir when I was about 8. So what ended up happening was I turned 14, and when I turned 14, and now mind you, all my life I love music. My family, they listen to it 24/7. You will wake up to me, especially on the weekend, you hear your mom listen to music, you know it's time to clean up. You hear your daddy
Mm.
listen to music, you know it's time to clean up. I always felt like I could do it because I would hear parts. Even as a kid, I didn't know how to explain it, but I could hear all the vocal parts and I could pick them out. I could sing them for you. I could remember them. I could teach them. Even the techniques, I would hear them as a kid.
Mhm.
And so when I turned 14 one day, I stayed after choir class at school. And I was like, I feel like I can do this. And so I sat down at the piano and I started picking out the songs that we were singing. That turned into me playing a classical song for the duet at the end of the year. To this day,
Wow.
I don't even remember how to play that song. I went to church that following Sunday and I got on the organ and I said, I think I understand the concept of this because I've heard it enough. And I started playing. So my minister of music came in. He said, "Hey, who taught you how to play?" And the only answer I could give him was God because I didn't
Wow.
know, I'm like, God. He said, "Okay." So he took me under his wing and he made me play um, every Sunday. I remember when We Lift Our Hands in the Sanctuary came out by Kurt Carr. And he made me play the song and he made the choir sing it every week until I played it in all the keys. I would leave embarrassed, upset, I'd be crying, and he'd be like, "I don't care about you crying. I'm gonna see you back here next week." or he would get off the organ and say, "I'm about to shout." And he would get off the organ and make me play praise music, and I didn't even know how to play it at that time, so I had to like just like learn. From there, it went to the youth choir. Now, the youth choir, I don't know how this ended up happening. I don't know what made them ask me, but I ended up playing the organ and directing the youth choir at 14.
Wow.
And from there, it's been nonstop. Like God has kept me on that path, um, and it hasn't stopped since then. So that's how it ended up, and he put it in my heart to love. I love teaching parts. I love teaching music. I love the technique, the color, the vividness, the expression of words and verses. So I just love it. So here I am.
You said something interesting about being an introvert. I'm an introvert also, but I think sometimes as introverts, especially as creatives, we see things differently than other people. I kind of feel like I could look at a blank piece of paper and in 5 minutes it could be a song. You ever feel that way that you're introverted but you're creative at the same time, like I said, you're hearing the parts, you're hearing what's going on. You ever feel that as an introvert?
Yes, all the time. I think being an introvert actually adds to a person that's creative because introverts normally use whatever space they can take for that um, quiet and uh, that moment to just listen and recharge. And in a creative space, when you're an introvert, those are moments where God drops things in your spirit and He lets you see things musically. Like you said, we see things a lot of times that in a way that people don't see it. So we could look at something very plain and everybody else is looking at it plain and we're like, oh my gosh, that's inspiration
Right.
right there. I had a song called Greater that I released maybe about 6 or 7 years ago. And I was driving to Walmart and I had to make a left into the Walmart. So I turned my turn signal and I said, wait a minute. I was like, wait a minute. This turn signal is too smooth. All of a sudden, I'm nodding my head and I'm just getting flooded with chords. And then the words to Greater start coming. So I called my wife. I was like, babe, the turn signal gave me I got a song for the turn signal. So I'm driving 80 home to write it down. But definitely I agree with you 100%. That definitely happens a lot.
I think it was Gregory Hines that in the movie Taps, it was about tap dancing, and he made the comment that music is everywhere, and you just proved that the turn signal music, uh, the turn of the wheels on a car, somebody drilling, just so many places, animals, birds chirping. You just hear music all the time. But let's kind of go back to what we were talking about, time, because you just said something that was important. As an introvert, you need time to recharge. So, with all that you have going on, where do you squeeze in that recharge time?
Number one, definitely in my car. My truck is like my second sanctuary. Um, Obviously, we have on the way to dropping my son off to school in the morning. We have family prayer all the way to dropping off to school, and I take my wife back to her car and send her off. And then once I get back in my car to head to work or wherever I'm going, that is prayer time. That is um, devotional time, meditation. Um, I've had people say when they got in my car they can like feel God because I do a lot of prayer in there. Also, with one of my jobs, I do it either 2 times a week or 3 times a week. So when on those days when I don't do that job, I have a morning space till about 11:30 a.m. And that's the time when I work out. And so, but even in that time, I'll take out like 20 or 30 minutes of that space and just pray or read the Bible or focus on God. Just I take that time. And then also when I get my family to sleep at night after we all fall asleep and they're asleep, sometimes I'll stay up until like the wee hours of the morning, just thinking and praying and resetting and meditating. So those would be my three main times.
Wow. Let's talk about your recording career.
Yes, sir.
2018, you started with the single Hallelujah. What made you decide I'm going to go be a recording artist?
Well, my love for arranging vocals and songwriting all started at the same time as the choir directing piece. Um, it all came hand in hand. So I knew eventually I was going to end up recording. It was just something I felt I knew was going to happen. I didn't know when. I just knew it was there, and I knew eventually I was going to run into it. Because I had been writing songs and arranging vocals and remixing songs since I was probably about 15, because I could just hear it. And then because of all the songs I'm writing, I'm like, I'm not getting these songs for no reason. These songs are for somebody to hear, to minister to somebody. And so I told God, I said, hey, you're the CEO here. I work for you. So whenever you want me to do this at whatever point in my life, I'm here for it. And I think God took a lot of years to prepare me for it, because being in the industry and recording, there's a lot to it. And if you don't love it, and if the passion's not in your heart, it will crush you. It will definitely crush you. Um,
Especially being an indie artist. Because
yes.
as an
Yeah,
indie artist,
we can
you bankroll everything. A lot of
facts,
it you don't get back. You have to
facts,
have an understanding spouse. Yeah, honey, I need to go spend $2,000 on this song. You need to what?
facts.
Yeah, you gonna have to pray a whole lot when you go with that.
Definitely.
What are some of the challenges that you face as an indie artist?
I would say definitely the financial piece for one, because if you do it the right way, it's expensive.
Right.
I say that because there's so much stuff out here now where you can kind of circle around and kind of cheat and do certain things in a microwave fashion, and I don't believe in that, because I've always studied people that were like far better than me, so I can sharpen myself. Um, So like I don't put out music that, for lack of better term, sound like it was recorded in like my mom's basement or something like that. I do like real studio time with, um, very experienced engineers. My shout out to my engineer JR. He's the only person that can mix and master my music. I deal with very experienced and skilled producers, which I kind of make their job easy because of my process. um, and the cost of traveling with the group, and making sure you have band and everybody's paid and all that stuff. So I would say financially, that's one thing. And then two, I don't so much have an issue with this now that I'm experienced, but like when I was younger, it was that pressure that the industry can put on you to try to sound like everybody else, or
Right.
if you don't sing this way, or if you don't write this way or play this way, then you're not good. Um, so learning to block out the negativity and write exactly what God has given me, I would say that. And then, like you said earlier, just the time management as far as keeping up your strength. You know what I mean? So that way, after you fought and you pressed your way to release this music and achieve these goals, and when the victory comes, having enough strength to actually enjoy the victories when they come.
I think you bring up a good point. One of my friends told me one time, I had a single out, and I'm like, my single's only like in the top 200. And my friend looked at me like, man, be grateful. Some people never get to the top 500. A lot of times as artists, we don't know how to stop and celebrate the moment. And that's something that I've learned to appreciate. If I have 5 streams, I'm celebrating it. If I have 1,000 streams, I'm celebrating it. And I share with artists a lot of times, don't get discouraged because maybe you only have 100 streams, but that's 100 people, 100 times that somebody took out of their day to listen to your music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I discovered you through Stephen Anderson. He keep changing his name. Who was the featured vocalist on your song "Praise Him." Then I had opportunity also to see you sing last year at Steph's concert. Talk about working with Stephen, working with Steph. I'm, I'm used to him being Steven. When he moved to Texas, he became Steph. So I'm just trying to find. We'll talk about working with him.
Stephen Anderson is my brother. Um, I don't use that lightly. That is my brother, man. To a point, he's one of the few artists that's actually that I know that has actually even been to my house. Um, Amazing dude, very hilarious. He'll have you rolling.
Yeah.
Um, Great spirit, amazingly talented vocalist, amazingly talented vocal arranger. Just a gifted, good-hearted guy. And so working with him was easy. Like, um, there was none of that grand stuff, you know. Um, Literally while he was recording the song, because he even asked me, hey, he was like, hey, you want me to come to your city and record it? You want me to record it where I'm at? So because he already had easier access to where he was at, I sent him over the files. And like, even while he was recording his line, he's calling me on the phone. Hey, listen to this. What you think about that? Was there anything more you want me to do? I mean, it was an easy process, and definitely I plan on doing it again. So yeah.
He's a good guy, man. We met right when I was getting ready to do my first session, and I always share the story about how they had sat us together at a concert. We didn't know each other. And he looked at me like, I'm Steven Anderson. I'm like, I'm Carl Phillips. But when I went and looked at who he was, I'm like, wow, this dude is popular. He's really good. So he came in and did a lot of my on a lot of my projects that I've worked on, background arrangements, lead vocals and stuff. He is an awesome guy. And I'm so
Yeah.
happy for the season he's experiencing right now. You have the number one song on Prove Me Gospel Radio. I have to put that in there. It's your latest single, which is called God 2.0. I've been watching a lot of the internet stations. They're really loving this song. Talk about the story behind God 2.0.
Okay, so this is a loaded question. And I love when I've gotten asked a lot about this song simply because of the title. So I'll start there. Okay, so um, some years back I had a choir called Andraye Speed and SOPW, Sound of Praise and Worship, and so that was one of the songs I wrote God is maybe around the age of like maybe 20 or 21. And so we would do that song, and everywhere, I mean, we couldn't go nowhere without doing this song. And the songs, like we did all original material everywhere we went. And so the songs were getting more and more popular. And so we were getting like more requests for the different songs that was going to be on that album. But I don't care what we did, we cannot get off stage unless we did God Is. I had people threatening me, talking about we weren't going to be friends no more if I didn't sing that song and all of that good stuff. So after I finally, retired the choir after about I think 8 or 9 years we were together, and I took a break for a while, and then the company started up after a few years, and so now that we're working on this album, that last album with the choir, all of the songs God gave me were like ahead of their time. And so it took a minute for people to like catch on and like really receive them. More so out of town, like when we went out of town, people would like receive them quick because they were just different songs. But in my city, the songs got popular later. But God Is was like at the top. So I said, what I was going to do is I'm going to go back to that album. I'm going to take a song off of that album every time I do a new project, and I'm going to remix it and put it on a new album. So what I did for this particular album was I took God Is because it was like one of the most popular songs here, and I figured that would be a good treat for like our city, a good treat for the people abroad from our city who love the song, and it'd be a good segue into the Overcome album. So I took that song. I told my wife. She was like, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea." I spent a few days like tweaking some of the vocals, um, uh, rearranging some things in there, and then rearranging some of the chord structure. Then I sent it to my producer and let him do some rearrangement on the chords as well. And so, since the song was already called God Is, that's why now the song is called God Is 2.0 because it's like the updated remix version of that song.
That's wise. Chandler Moore said something that always stuck with me. He talked about your old songs will be a hit song today. And a lot of times, as writers, we have songs that we've written years ago, like you said, recorded years ago, that once you put it out today, it becomes a hit. And that kind of sounds like where you are. You mentioned the Overcomer project. When can we expect the project to drop, and what can we expect from that project?
Cool. So right now we are in the final stages of recording on our project. We have 3 more songs left to finish recording background vocals on and the soloist. Um, so that can kind of vary just because we're very particular about what we put out. And so it has to be as near to perfect as possible. But definitely the Overcome project will be out this year. I will say that.
Okay.
And I don't think it's going to be long either. I hope it's not going to be long.
I think sometimes as creatives, again, I know I can get impatient when it comes to getting music done. My partner is the exact opposite. My MD, he's the exact opposite. Like if I send him something tonight, I want it done tomorrow, and it'll take him 6 months, and it drives me crazy. So,
Mhm.
so I get it, but when you're trying to put perfection out, it takes time. It's just like cooking. You can't rush
Yes,
it. You can't,
yes,
you can't put something in the oven and 2 minutes later be ready to eat it. So what
right.
beyond the project, what's in the future for Andraye Speed?
Hmm. That's a great question. There are certain things that I know. There are certain gifts that God has given me that at first I used to run from them, but of the last, I would say about 10 years now, I have accepted it. And so when God wants to speak through me, um, and when He wants me to say something, I say it instead of shying away. But I only speak when God tells me to speak. You know what I mean? But I've felt a higher pulling on that, and I don't know exactly what God is trying to do there, but I just know that whatever He wants, I'll go. And it took me years to get to this point because, again, being an introvert, um, God will often use you in spaces that you're not comfortable.
Right.
So I would say between that, there's a couple of kind of side business things that I do that I feel like it's time to enlarge those borders and territories. Um, Definitely some things I got coming up as far as like the educational field. I've been offered some things, so I've been praying about taking them, different positions and stuff like that. So there's a few irons in the fire, and so I'm just getting myself in a position to say, Lord, you know, you do it.
Wait a minute, I just heard a new song right there. You do it, Lord. You do it.
Don't be surprised if you see that coming up on a single or album.
You do it. Ah, man, I have enjoyed this conversation with you. How can people follow you on social media? How can they get their music, get your music, and how can they contact you?
You can follow me on social media on Facebook at Andraye Speed. You can follow me on Instagram at A Speed Music Official, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Andraye Speed. And actually, if you type in Andraye Speed on TikTok, you can find me there too. If you want to book us, it is Andraye Speed Booking at gmail.com. Again, Andraye Speed Booking at gmail.com. And my name is spelled differently because my daddy named me, but my aunt decided she wanted to spell it. So with that being said, my name is Andraye, last name Speed, like speed limit.
Thank you for explaining that because I forgot to ask that question.
I
As
get asked a lot.
as we wrap up, what advice would you give to a 14-year-old who's in school, who's beginning to discover their passion for music? Or not even 14, but just someone that's maybe in high school and like you were, that had that love. What advice would you give that person, that young person?
I would say this, and this is every time I ask this question, I give the same answer because I'm very passionate about the answer of this. And me and you actually talked about it a little bit earlier in the show. However God gives you to write, do it that way. However God gives you to sing, whatever voice God gives you, whatever vocal pattern, sing like you. However God gives you to play, whatever God gives you to do it like how God gives it to you uniquely, because there are a lot of gifted people. I mean, tons of them, a lot of talented people, but a lot of them sound alike these days. And so now we're looking for something unique, something authentic. Um, yes, be gifted, yes, be talented, but no more musical clones. Don't let people, don't let the industry pressure you into sounding like everyone else, because we already have that. Your fans and who God calls you to, they want to hear you. Your supporters are going to want to hear you. So do it like how God gives it to you, and don't let people tell you, oh, just because you don't sing this way or you don't play that way, you're not good. That's the enemy. Practice, sharpen yourself daily, challenge yourself to be better than yourself every day, but continue to always be you, and you'll end up exactly where you need to be.
That's great wisdom. Again, everybody, we're talking with Andraye Speed. A lot of great wisdom, great conversation. I just want to remind everyone, I like to close like this every time. Remember to work like you don't need the money, love like you've never been hurt, and dance like no one's watching you. Go get Andre's new project, his new single, God 2.0. God bless until we have a chance to meet again.
Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm.
The Carl B. Phillips Show.
Thank you for listening to the Carl B. Phillips Show. For more information, go to carlbphillips.com.
The Carl B. Phillips Show.
Follow Carl B. Phillips on Instagram so we can stay in contact with each other.